We are continuing to follow any and all developments regarding the two National Guards members who were shot in Washington, D.C. near the White House just last week. I want to bring us out to this, an image that we have at the White House over in D.C. Now, President Trump saying on Sunday that he has invited the family of a National Guard member that was fatally shot last week, saying he spoke to her parents and they were devastated. I want to bring up some of the photos from both of those members that we have here. So take a look at this. Sarah Beckstrom, is the one who passed away. Now, her colleague, Andrew Wolf, remains in critical condition. The president says he's discussed a White House visit for the parents of both members of the West Virginia National Guard. And in recent days, local vigils in West Virginia have honored the soldiers, including one Saturday evening at Webster County High School, where Beckstrom attended classes. Beckstrom was 20 and Wolf is 24. They were deployed with the West Virginia National Guard as part of President Trump's aggressive crime-fighting plan that federalized the D.C. police force. Joining us now to discuss this even further is Scott Duffey. He is a retired special agent. And Scott, good to see you, although not under these circumstances.
Yes, good morning, Carel.
So the FBI heavily involved in this investigation, and you really know what that's like when they pull all the stops to try to figure out really the motive, remaining one of the most important things, and also trying to get some more background on the suspect who was an Afghan national. But it has been a few days since this incident occurred. So, Scott, where does this investigation stand today? What is most important at the moment?
Yeah, so the FBI, I'm glad to see that the FBI, especially the Joint Terrorism Task Force, was brought in order to look at all aspects of this investigation. So you have an individual that traveled the United States from the West Coast to the East Coast. What was his intention? Why not any type of harm in between? What was his intention when he arrived in D.C.? Was this something that was planned from the moment that he left his home to the time that he arrived in D.C.? And so the investigation is important to determine the level of the charges, right? So you have now a homicide, you have a murder investigation that is taking place. You have an aggravated assault. You have an active shooter that came to the United States to shoot not only into a crowd, but what all intents purposes seems to be that of our National Guard, those in uniform protecting and serving the people of Washington, D.C. and the United States. So getting into the mindset is important. An interview, not only an interview of the subject, if that's possible, but also of everyone that the subject had some sort of contact with, either through media, through social media, through whatever it is that this individual might have released information to somebody where they might have passed it off as, oh, that he's talking, nonsense at whatever. But are there breadcrumbs that can be picked up that were laid before in order to determine what was his motive, what was his intent? And that is, was this simply an active shooter of somebody who had gone off in the rails, or was this somebody intent on hurting the men and women in uniform and to target that of the United States?
I want to put up a social media post here, courtesy of Reuters. It includes a photo of that suspect. He is a 29-year-old Afghan national. He is facing now 1 count of first-degree murder, 2 counts of assault with intent to kill while armed in the shooting. And this post says this: U.S. authorities believe the Afghan immigrant accused of ambushing National Guard members in Washington, D.C. was not radicalized until after he came to the U.S. So that's interesting, this aspect here, Scott. How does the FBI track perhaps possible outlets that could radicalize an individual after they get to the U.S.? And it might not even be domestic outlets, but it could also be international outlets as well.
Correct. So getting into the individual's social media, whatever it is that this person might have had contact with, whoever. So, for example, at work, going through work computers, their phones. Do they have multiple phones? Their home computers, jumping on families' computers if there's more than one computer, in order to determine who this person was in contact with, if any. Could have been a lone wolf who had simply gone on and listened to information, and perhaps there is a mental health component as well, to where this person becomes driven and must go and complete his plan. So it is ultimately going to come down to interviews of family members, friends, colleagues. It is also going to be using our international partners, not only the FBI is well situated throughout offices around the world, but also with our intel partners, to determine what was going on with this individual prior to come to the United States, the proper vetting if there was one, and then ultimately tracking his movements and his connections, his contacts, his communications with anyone. What was he surfing? What websites was he going on to? So all that is in play. All that will be done methodically with the FBI's resources and abilities to go through to see if this person indeed was communicating with someone or somebody, a group outside the United States or within the United States, and then ultimately carrying out this horrible act.
When we look at some of the outlets that perhaps could have radicalized this individual or other people, could there be more charges coming? And more specifically, when we think of it as just like a broader spectrum, because if you can go on the internet, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can engage in. There's a lot of things that could, make you act out in certain ways. How does the FBI handle those kind of threats? Is there even any kind of control?
Yeah, no, this is a free country, right? And so thereby you're able to go and look at anything online and be able to um, watch, view, and see if in fact that's something that you aspire to. And so ultimately, these groups exist. They've been identified through intelligence and a tremendous amount of investigation over the years to identify groups. No different than we identify gangs throughout the country. What gangs exist? What threat do they pose? And so thereby, both international and domestic groups that exist in order um, to create anarchy, to create destruction, to disrupt our government as the government sees fit. And so these groups are intent on hurting not only the people of the United States, but also the very life that we live, from government to our everyday lives. So they're going to get into to see if in fact he was in touch with these groups, not only viewing, where he might be listening to YouTube videos and thereby having no communication. Perhaps there is a mental health component and he takes this to that deep, dark side and carries out this mission. And so ultimately, was he conspiring with others, thereby additional charges could exist? Or was he ultimately a lone wolf who had become radicalized and viewing such material to become such an anti-American and to want to hurt not only other Americans, but those who wear the uniform, who are there to protect and serve us each and every day?
You mentioned something else that's very important that I want to touch on, which is this vetting process when immigrants come into the U.S. Now, how deeply is the FBI involved in that vetting process, and what kind of changes have been implemented in an attempt to prevent such an attack like this from happening?
Yeah, so the FBI has been uniquely involved, especially in a post 9/11 era, to be able to be not only throughout our legal attache offices throughout the United States, partnered with CIA and other intel partners. And so thereby, we offer a very unique perspective in the sense of being able to interview. Where is a person at in their mind? What evidence are they able to obtain with regards to digital media and any other platforms that they may be going through? So ultimately, is not a one-on-one, face-to-face interview, getting to know that individual, getting to know their mindset, their intent, and whatnot, and then being able to, as best as possible, track whatever movements prior to coming to this country. So it's a well layered process where multiple agencies throughout, and it is methodical when done properly, and ultimately to as best as they can to say, okay, this person poses no threat. There's no evidence of any threat, and no mitigating or any type of evidence to show that this person is not looking to come here to the United States to hurt somebody, but to actually be able to live, to be free, and to contribute to that of our society.
And then one final question, Scott. How much longer is the FBI going to be involved in this investigation? What are the next steps, and who's going to take over this case in the long term?
Yeah, so DC is unique in the sense of, you have your federal prosecutions. And so you have the U.S. Attorney of DC that is prosecuting this case. The JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, I would imagine, in cooperation and collaboration with its local partners, the Metropolitan Police Department, the Homicide, where they are doing everything possible to ensure that, like any other criminal investigation, the every aspect is investigated. So not only interviews, but your evidence, collecting all the evidence, not only through your social media platforms and whatnot, but also that of the crime scene, which I imagine was handled by the evidence response team of the FBI. So the FBI is in this until the very end of prosecution. And so this still has to get to a courtroom. All the search warrants and arrest warrants, if there are going to be additional arrest warrants, that will be executed. And ultimately to see that this person has their day in court, and to bring forth his witnesses, and ultimately to see this not only through a conviction, but a sentencing. That is where the FBI will remain until this case is completely resolved through the courtroom.
Scott Duffey, a retired FBI special agent, we appreciate your time this morning to dig deep on this case. Take care.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I want to bring up some more of the photos here that we've been showcasing. These were the two National Guard members who were shot in that ambush attack. Now, according to the Associated Press, funeral arrangements have not been finalized for Beckstrom, and Wolf entered service in February of 2019. He had graduated from Musselman High School in 2019, according to Berkeley County Schools. He remains hospitalized and fighting for his life. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi telling Fox News Sunday that she also planned to meet with Wolf's family. Morrissey calling it a challenging time for the state, calling Beckstrom a, quote, favorite daughter of Webster County. He said he quickly learned about her reputation as someone with a big heart who loved to serve others. Beckstrom of Somerville graduated in June of 2023 and enlisted that month. She served with distinction as a military police officer, according to the West Virginia National Guard. We'll be right back.